The Executive Director of the Center for Collaborative and Investigative Journalism, CCIJ, Professor Jeff Kelly Lowenstein, is an investigative journalist, an author, and the founder of the Center for Collaborative Investigative Journalism. He is also the former Padnos Sarosik Endowed Chair of Civil Discourse at Grand Valley State University, United States of America. His works have been published in The New Yorker, USA Today, and the Center for Public Integrity, among many publications, and has earned national and international recognition from organizations like Investigative Reporters and Editors, IRA, the National Press Club, the National Headliner Club, the Society for News Design and National Association of Black Journalists. Jeff has participated in national and international fellowships about racial justice, the environment, health, business, and trauma. Professor Jeff is a Fulbright scholar, specialist, and a teacher. He has written and edited 7 books, including the recently published Comrade King. He and his wife, Donred, a writer and educational consultant, live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce the Executive Director of the Center for Collaborative Investigative Journalism, Professor Jeff Kelly Lowenstein, to deliver the opening remarks for this event. Thank you very much.
I am very appreciative of the opportunity to be here with all of you, and I just wanted to start by saying thank you. Thank you so much to Dr. Adamu, Dr. Nasidi, and all of the people at ABU who have worked so hard to provide this remarkable opportunity. Thank you very much to Dr. Kole Shatima and Dr. Amina Salihu and MacArthur Foundation's West Africa office who have provided such tremendous support. Thank you to Mr. Emeka Loveday for his tech support, to Mr. Ajibola Amzat, our Africa editor, for his leadership, to all of our team members who are either in person or online, to the journalism colleagues and members of our West Africa Hub, including Mr. Haruna Mohammed, who will be on the panel as well, and all of you for being here. I'm sorry that we're not there with you in person, but really look forward to and see this as the beginning of a long-term relationship. So I just wanted to say that we really see today as the beginning of an ongoing and critical conversation. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is changing rapidly, and there are both many very exciting aspects of its potential, but it also raises some real potential concerns and challenges. And the larger context in which we're all coming together is that there is a global assault on truth that has very strong consequences for the democratic fabric of our international community. And on the one hand, AI has been a strong part of that attack. It's been used by people as a part of that attack, but it also can be, I would suggest respectfully, part of the solution. That's part of what we'll talk about here and then going forward. And we're very honored to be part of the community of people who are part of putting on this conference. And so this panel is the first of 4 contributions that we are making to the conference, of sessions. So after this, we will have a hands-on workshop using examples of AI before, during, and after the production of journalistic work. Dr. Hamisu and Mr. Amzat will talk about the ethics of AI. And then tomorrow we will have a fireside chat in which we will talk about how to take what we're learning at this conference and move it forward beyond today, beyond tomorrow, and in the indefinite future. And so our goal as CCIJ is to help serve as a bridge between journalism industry, academia, philanthropy, NGOs, and so on. So we really want to establish the foundation of a long-term relationship. So in terms of the order, I'll just talk a little bit about CCIJ, give a definition of AI, a couple different types and some context, and then that will then lead into the conversation and dialogue that Mr. Ajibola Amzat will lead us in. So at CCIJ, we bring together visual, data, and investigative journalists as equal partners to carry out ongoing investigations into key global issues. We have a strong commitment to working with and learning from individuals, families, and organizations in underserved and under-resourced communities, and we also have a strong commitment to training. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. Now, as you can see, this picture is from a collaboration that we did with our colleagues and friends at HumAngle. And I just want to share that we came out of the African Investigative Journalism Conference, and from the very beginning of our community, we've had a strong Nigerian presence. Ms. Motunrayo Alaka is one of our founding board members and is currently our board secretary. Ms. Rona Meyer was our first head of social media and supervised our interns, and we'll talk about internships a little bit later. And Ms. Vanessa Offiong has been a very important member of our community from the beginning of our time. Now, here is some of our current team. So as you can see, we have colleagues from Greece, Mr. Sotiris Sideris you'll hear from, Ms. Yushi Wang you'll hear from, Ms. Serena Stellitano you'll hear from. We also have a strong Nigerian presence. Mr. Ajibola Amzat is our Africa editor from Nigeria. Ms. Fola Folayan, who is here helping to coordinate today. Ms. Nelly Kalu. Fola is our digital marketing coordinator, marketing manager. And Nelly Kalu, Ms. Nelly Kalu, is our project manager. We also have members of our West Africa hub that Mr. Amzat has just played such a critical role in developing. So we have colleagues and friends in dozens and dozens of journalists, largely in Nigeria, but also in other parts of West Africa. So I just share that to say that from the very beginning and still now, Nigeria and West Africa are just a very important part of who we are. So with AI, I just wanted to move now to the definition and the substance of the keynote. So with AI, it's the theory and development of computer systems to perform tasks that normally humans would do. So that's such things such as visual perception, speech, translation between languages, decision-making. So basically, it's the simulation of human intelligence by machines. So that's the artificial, it's not human, but it's intelligence. Now, there are many different types of AI. I just want to talk about two. And the reason why I'm choosing these two is because these are two that you'll hear from in the hands-on session. You'll hear about in the hands-on session. So machine learning is a field of artificial intelligence or study that's concerned with the development of algorithms that can learn from unseen data and then thus perform analysis or data without instruction. So that's the idea that the algorithm takes in information and then absorbs it, and then from there, without being told what to do, does some of the things that we as humans can do, make analyses, make predictions, make connections, and so on. So here's just one example of machine learning, fraud prevention. There's facial recognition, there's product recommendations, there's text and data mining. These are all examples of machine learning. Now, another type that you may have heard about or seen is a generative AI. And so what happens with generative AI is the generative part is basically new content being generated. So in other words, generative AI models can take in images, audio, video, code, and then turn those content entries into different types of content. So in other words, text can be inputted to image, image can be inputted into video, video can be inputted into text, and so on. So you may be familiar with chatbots like ChatGPT or OpenAI. There are trip planners. There are many different types of generative AI, and that's being talked about. Those two, machine learning and generative AI, are talked about quite often these days. So I just wanted to mention, while talking about generative AI, Lalapa AI, headed by Dr. Vukosi Maravate, at the University of Pretoria. And so he is working on creative African language models for chatbots, because most of the chatbots that exist where you give instructions and then it generates new content, most of those are in English. So he's looking to develop those in African languages like isiZulu and Setswana. Again, he's based in South Africa, but I just want to share that that's an example of generative AI coming from the African continent. Okay, now I just wanted to give just one example. We'll hear more later about journalism and AI. So this is a project that some journalists in Europe did called Inside the Suspicion Machine. And it's very interesting because it's both AI, or artificial intelligence, as a subject of the investigation, but also AI was used, machine learning was used to interrogate the model used in the system that was being investigated. And so this system was about welfare recipients in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And basically, machine learning, the first of the two types that I talked about, was used by the designers of this system to input more than 300 different inputs about welfare recipients in the city, and then from there, use an algorithm to predict who would be the riskiest 1,000 recipients. Everybody was given a score, and then investigate them. And so what the journalists did was, first they fought for a long time to be able to get the underlying code. So that was one distinctive feature. Then they used machine learning to demonstrate a lot of the biases and kind of the flaws within that system. So that's just one example of journalism and AI, and we'll hear more in the hands-on session in other places. Okay, well, a big part of the panel is talking about journalism education and AI. So I just wanted to give one example. This is the Night Lab at Northwestern University in the United States. And so at the Northwestern Night Lab, at Northwestern University, they bring together computer science and journalism students to build tools that newsrooms can use, and that AI is just one part of the work that they do there. Okay, now here is where I just wanted to get to, after providing a brief definition and some examples, both the potential but also the challenges. Now, on the one hand, on the potential, AI has the potential to make journalistic work and other work just much more efficient, more expansive, more probing. So Mr. Sideris, who you'll hear from, will just talk about how you can just analyze just millions and millions of records far more quickly than what humans could do themselves. So on the one hand, there's just tremendous potential, and we'll talk about it both the beginning, afterwards, before, during, and after the production of journalistic work, all the ways in which AI can help. On the other hand, it can and has been used as a source of disinformation that erodes the democratic fabric of our international community. And I'm sure you're familiar with deep fakes and fake audio and all those different types of content. So depending on how it's used, it can really present a lot of challenges, even as there's a lot of potential. There are also questions about existing biases continuing. Dr. Hamisu and Mr. Amzat have prepared a paper in which they're raising the question, is the inputting of Western data largely into African AI a form of digital colonialism? There's questions about unequal access. And then there's also the new ethical terrain, and Dr. Hamisu will talk about that among others. So it's a complicated field. It's a rapidly changing conversation, and we're just honored to be part of the global community involved in that work. And speaking of that, I just wanted to invite all of you, whoever would like to attend, to join our community and to attend our monthly virtual training. So here's my contact information, my email. Please let me know if you would like to be added to our monthly updates, and Ms. Falayan prepares the monthly updates, and attend our free online virtual trainings. We're also looking to bolster more of an in-person presence. And for the students in the room, I would welcome you to contact us regarding the possibility of a summer internship. And this will be the 5th summer in a row that we've had interns. We need young journalists, we need hungry journalists, we need diverse journalists, and we are very committed to being a resource for those coming up and to building capacity in the new generation, and we'll do anything we can to help. So thank you very much for your attention. I will stop my comments now and then turn it over to the rest of the panel. Thank you very much.
Please, a round of applause to Professor Jeff. Student, I can't hear you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Danladi. I'm very happy to be here this morning. My name is Ajibola Hamzat, and I'm the African editor for Center for Collaborative Investigative Journalism. Our office is in Michigan, so I just happen to be the African editor. And I want to stand on the existing protocol established by Dr. Danladi by saying good morning to everyone who is here this morning. Good morning. Thank you. And I would like to thank especially the organizer of the event through the personality of Dr. Adama Adam, who has been coordinating this event, and other team that has been working with her for the past 4 weeks. We've been together on this. So we thank you so much for inviting us to be part of this very important event. And also to the foundation that supports all the projects, journalistic project that has been going on in Nigeria, MacArthur Foundation, who is now represented by Dr. Amina Saliu. Good morning, madam, and thank you for doing all this for the Nigerian media space. This morning, we're going to be looking at the issue that Jeff, I call him Jeff, he's a professor, but he's the only professor I call Jeff. I dare not call any of my professors by their name. But Jeff is just Jeff, so we call him Jeff. So Jeff has spoken to some of the issues around the journalism and AI and journalism education, and that is what we are going to be dissecting this morning. So I have a very wonderful panel who are going to be looking at the issues that Jeff delivered in his keynote address. I would like to say that Jeff himself would have been here. In fact, all the team of CCIJ who have anything to do with journalism and AI, we have bought tickets to be here. Jeff was supposed to come from the US. Yuxi is supposed to come from China. Sotiris, our data editor, who is going to be on the panel this morning, was supposed to come from Greece. And Serena Stelitano is supposed to come from Italy. So all of, and Nelly, they're supposed to come from Rwanda. So all of us, we have bought tickets to be here until we got the advisory of the US government and said, hey, hold on, guys. Kaduna State is not safe. And that's put a paid to all the plans that we have made. I wanted to make an argument that, look, I had the same kind of experience when the first time I was to go to Maiduguri, when I was supposed to cover the kidnap of Chibok girls in 2014. We were told not to go. But I dared to go and found out when I got to Maiduguri that people were actually living their life. People were getting married. Children were going to school. People were living their life. And I was saying to myself, all the noise, all the fear stories that we have read in the news prevented so many people to come to go and experience this beautiful town. And that gave me an idea that the way we frame stories sometimes matters. And I'm very happy that we have the media scholars in the room, that when we are teaching our students, framing is very important. The way we frame stories of our country. I know the Major General spoke to that issue yesterday. It's very important that we balance the story so that what we do is not just to tell the negative side, but also try to reflect on the positive side of what happened in our country. It is because of the kind of story that is being published or broadcast on radio, on TV, that prevented Jeff and the rest of my team to be here today. So, ladies and gentlemen, on this note, I am going to be inviting my colleagues who are going to be directing the issue at hand. First of all, let me invite Mrs. Sorry, I don't want to misspell your name, so I would need to, because you warned me that I should not get your name very wrongly. So I want to be making sure that I spell your name very correctly. You can see this one of the, okay, now I have the name. Mrs. Ibilolia Akahome Daniel. Ibilolia Daniel Akahome. Ibilolia Daniel Akahome. Did I get the name correctly pronounced? No, she's not, I used to call her Ibilola, but she now told me that she's not a Yoruba lady, that she's from Port Harcourt. She's a Rivers lady. So her name is Ibilolia. No, not Ibilola. Ibilolia, you're welcome. Next to Ibilolia is Sotiris, Sideris. Sotiris is online. Sotiris, are you there with us? Please, can you, Emeka, please show Sotiris for us. And the next person who is going to be on this panel is Mr. Haruna Mohammed. And of course, last but not the least, is Professor Mohammed Hamisu Sani. You're welcome, Prof. Let me read very briefly the profile of the people that we have on the panel so that we have the background, have the understanding of the background of each of the speakers. Let me start from Dr. Sani. Dr. Mohammed Hamisu Sani is a senior lecturer and the head of mass communication department at the Baze University, Abuja, Nigeria. Before he joined Baze University, he taught at several universities across the globe, including Queen's University in Kingston, Canada. He also taught at the University of Winnipeg, Manitoba, in Canada as well, and also Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland, United States of America. Dr. Mohammed Sani also taught at the American University of Nigeria, AUN, in Yola, and Bayero University, briefly, in Kano, Nigeria here. His research interests focus on media, conflict, mass media law, and ethics, media and identity politics, media framing, African media space, and globalization. Professor Hamisu. And next to Prof is Mrs. Ibilolia Akahome, a seasoned technology professional with over 3 years of experience in AI, data science, and data journalism. She has led educational programs that equip individuals with the skills necessary for success in this field. Ibilolia expertise lies in data analysis, storytelling with data, where she applies her knowledge to extract actionable insight and drive strategic decision-making. With a passion for leveraging data-driven approaches, she is committed to advancing AI data science and data journalism initiative. And she is from Dataphyte. Ms. David, Akahome, you are welcome. And to our online panelist, Sotiris is an award-winning data journalist from Athens, Greece. Sotiris is a trainer and consultant based in Athens, Greece, with extensive cross-border and collaborative experience. He is a data editor of the CCIJ and Reporters United and co-founder of Athens Live. He also served as a lecturer of digital media at Macromedia University of Applied Sciences in Berlin, and as a research associate in the NT Lab at the University of Athens. Previously, he worked with the Greek NGO Network for Children's Rights as the coordinator and chief editor of the multilingual newspaper Migratory Birds, featuring stories written by young migrants and refugees in Arabic, English, Greek, and Urdu, and as a researcher producer of the Greek National TV documentary series 28 Europe. His work has been published in numerous Greek and European publications, including Investigate Europe, Media Apart. In 2017, he was a Stavros Nichols Foundation Fellow at the Columbia University, where he studied programming and data journalism. In 2019, Sotiris participated in the Better Challenge, a global fellowship program for investigative journalism, and activities by Better Foundation. Sotiris, you are welcome. And last but not the least is Mr. Haruna Mohammed Salisu, the publisher of WikkiTimes, an online newspaper based in Nigeria's northeastern state of Bauchi, a fellow at the African Resilience Network Kwame Karikari Research Fellowship. Haruna has many years of experience in investigative and data journalism. He has contributed to the improvement of transparency, accountability, and good governance in state and local governments in Northeast Nigeria through fearless reporting. A member of the Center for Collaborative Investigative Journalism, West African Hub. Haruna is also a member of the SafeBox Network, Forbidden Stories in Paris, and he has mentored journalists across many newsrooms in Nigeria. Haruna is an expert on open source intelligence method of investigation and is curiously studying the intersection of collaborative journalism and artificial intelligence. Mr. Haruna, you're welcome. So once again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And we're very glad to have you this morning to discuss the issue of artificial intelligence, journalism, and media education, especially in Nigeria. And I'm very happy that we have a very brilliant audience who are also going to ask you a number of questions by the time you are done with dissecting the issue. Perhaps I should start with you, Mrs. Ibilolia, because you are the only lady among us. Just give us your thoughts around artificial intelligence, journalism, education, because you are a trainer, so you know the drill. So you can just give us your thoughts, and you have 5 minutes to do that, or less.
Good morning, everyone, once again. Thank you to CCIJ and AB Zaria for having me here today. AI has actually been ubiquitous. It has been with us, although Nigeria is just beginning to catch up on the recent trends, in as much as the Nigerian community were just consumers of artificial intelligence technologies, not really producers or leaders in that field per se. But one thing that has been striking is that we have tried as much as possible to, within the constraints of policies, availability of funding, and the equipment that can enable us to be leaders in that field, we've been able to do a few things, as we can see in some solutions around fintech, health tech, insurtech, and the rest of them. It is something that excites me to hear that journalism or the media professionals are beginning to embrace artificial intelligence technologies, merging it with their day-to-day activities. While it feels like it is a bit difficult to incorporate artificial intelligence into the curriculum because of, obviously, I had talked about the constraints of funding and the rest of them. Organizations like Dataphyte has gone, ahead to create collaborations with universities to help put perspectives, especially universities that offer mass communication, media, journalism, put perspectives to introducing artificial intelligence technologies into their curriculum. So one thing I am very much happy to see is that in the next 3 to 5 years, journalism education would probably be having the introduction of artificial intelligence into their curriculum. Now, it is really, we saw Jeff talk about some of the challenges also as regards the ethical considerations of artificial intelligence. And this is where thought leaders in the universities can come up with policies that can be introduced to the government to help them build a framework that can regulate, the use of artificial intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we do better than this? Yeah. Thank you very much, Ibilolia. Madam Haruna, your thoughts.
Good morning, everyone. I am looking like Dr. Kole Shetima today, only that I don't have grants to give. So, Ebu, don't come to me for any grants. I got something yesterday that is very instructive from the 2 presentations that were made here yesterday, which was that technology is disrupting the space, and then the consumption habit is changing in a very, significant way. So there is one key thing here. If technology is disrupting the space and then the consumption habit is changing, then we do no longer have mass audiences in the real sense of it. We now have fragmented audiences that have divergent interests and all of that. And that is why, for example, in today's journalism, if you are publishing on a website, for instance, you have to be deliberate in, producing other contents that are supposed to target these fragmented audiences that are in different spaces, on Facebook, on Twitter, on WhatsApp, and all of that. So amidst all of this, AI is here, contributing to that disruptions very significantly. So how then do we, as journalists, embrace this AI to do a whole lot of things faster, quicker, and in a more efficient way? And that is why, for me, the conversation is not about running away from these AI tools. The conversation should be about embracing the tools and understanding how we can use them in a very positive way. Because we have to maintain the core of journalism, which is to preserve democracy, hold power to account, and all of that. And for us to do that significantly, we have to embrace these tools and understand how to use them for the benefit of our people. And that is why at WikkiTimes, for instance, and thanks to our partnership again with the CCIJ and other newsrooms that are, paying attention to AI, we've realized that we've got to tell ourselves the truth, which is that we can't run away from AI. We have to embrace them. So how can we use them? From Professor Pate's presentation yesterday, he lamented about episodic reporting that is shallow, that is not deeply rooted in context and perspective and all of that. So generative AI like ChatGTP, for instance, the premium version of it anyway, can help a journalist or a reporter to quickly, look at other publications, data, for instance, make meaning out of it in a very quicker way, and that will enrich their stories. It will allow them give a lot of tie back and a lot of context. For instance, the premium version, if you want to, let's say you are doing a story on gender-based violence, and you want authoritative sources from, say, UNICEF, from WHO, from World Bank, you can prompt the chat box and say, give me links published on gender-based violence on BBC website that talk about, say, Zaria. The chat box is going to peruse the website very quickly and give you those links. So it saves your time, having to navigate to Google and wasting your time and reading lengthy documents and all that. You could also upload, say, a 500-page document and prompt the chat box and tell the chat box, give me so statement in this document. And the chat box is going to give you that information in seconds. So you see, you save time, save resources, save energy, and then that will help you add perspective, add nuances, add context to your own story. So my opinion would be, how do we continue to understand these tools and make use of them in a very positive way to give richer, more contextually based stories that will continue to inform our people, because that's the core of journalism. If we have derailed from that core of informing and educating our people, then I don't know what else. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Haruna. Thank you. So, and to add to your point, even researcher can benefit a lot from ChatGPT that Haruna talked about. If you want to do any research or you want to do a review on any particular subject, you can say, ChatGPT, I'm researching about Nigerian election. Can you give me literatures on this subject? And it will give you not only the literature, but the authors and the years, all the references. And if you say, can you summarize this paper for me? ChatGPT will go ahead and do the summary. You can say, I don't want 5,000 words summary. I want just 2,000 or even 500. ChatGPT will do that exactly as you instructed it. So those are the advantages that some of this AI tool can actually bring to the work that we do as scholars and also as journalists. Let me go to Sotiris now. Sotiris, please, 5 minutes, your thoughts.
Sure. Hi, Ajibola. Hi, everyone, and thank you very much for having me. Many thanks to the organizers and hosts. Great to be here. I wish I could be in person with you all. So very briefly, I'm going to talk about data and AI, or data and AI in journalism, and how these areas are reshaping the way we journalists gather, analyze, and disseminate information in the digital age. So we will talk briefly about the current landscape, some innovations and implications of those powerful tools. And we are doing that because, especially at CCIJ, as Jeff and very vividly as Ajibola and Haruna explained, we are using all these tools, and they have been transforming the way we as journalists understand information, but they also revolutionize storytelling in the digital area as we are digital publishers. So, as you all know, journalism has gone significant transformations in recent years, and artificial intelligence enhances significantly our reporting and analytical capabilities. This evolution has seen many different integrations and technologies that again change the way we gather and analyze information and how we share this information and present it with our audiences. It assists also to make a more personalized experience for our audiences, and bear with us because in the afternoon session, the hands-on workshop, we will be talking about personalization in terms of analysis of data through AI, as well as presentation through our colleague Serena Stelizano in the metaverse. So artificial intelligence and data. How are these two different or seamlessly different fields combined? They are combined because data and data journalism are not just about presenting data. It's about uncovering and telling stories that some people, organizations, or any other entities would like them to remain hidden without the analytical power of modern technology. So data journalism at its core marries the investigative foundations of journalism with the precision of data science, turning abstract numbers into compelling narratives. We have been using a lot programming languages like Python or R because they are very pivotal in this process of turning these abstract numbers into meaningful stories and messages. So these programming languages can equip journalists with the ability to process and analyze large data sets and interpret them very fastly and in a very efficient way. They enable us journalists to extract insights from data, to predict trends using machine learning models, and to even uncover patterns that would be impossible to detect manually. So how AI is enhancing these skills? It further amplifies these possibilities within data journalism because machine learning algorithms can analyze text, images, and videos to generate insights or to identify trends. For instance, sentiment analysis can gauge public opinion on social issues, elections, for example, or product launches by analyzing social media posts and comments. On the other hand, predictive models can forecast everything from election results to economic shifts, providing journalists with a forward-looking perspective on current issues. There are, of course, as we all realize, many emerging possibilities through these technologies, such as ChatGPT models, and these models are beginning to play a role in generating automated stories, where basic sports, finance, and weather news can be generated in seconds automatically. Of course, as we will see in later, human monitoring and intervention are always needed when we are talking about automated decisions or automated news production and dissemination as well as consumption. And to do that, I would like to bring up very fastly, Ajibola, if I may, an example from Greek mythology and imagine how ancient Greeks had access to AI and data analytics. Bear with me because I will explain myself. So we could draw this example from the oracle at Delphi, which was considered the hub of knowledge and insights in ancient Greece. Just as the oracle was sought after for guidance on crucial decisions like elections or wars or policy making, today's AI systems, powered by vast amounts of data, guide us in making informed decisions across various fields. So in this analogy, the oracle's predictions can be seen as the output of complex AI algorithms today, with Pythia, the priestess of the oracle, serving as the interface through which the divine insights from gods were communicated to humans. The consultations and rituals could symbolize the data processing and analysis where specific questions were posed and answers were derived from an understanding beyond common reach. Imagine what Ajibola was describing before, how we provide input or queries. We ask ChatGPT for an answer and the platform will generate this answer for us. But what is very, very important here, and I will pause after that, is how we interpret and we analyze these results, how we as humans and more precisely as journalists or researchers and academics interpret and interview this data. We cannot take data and ChatGPT's or any other AI's responses for granted because of all the biases that these platforms can convey within their messages. We need to have this kind of analytical way of thinking in order to analyze the data and the results in a way that provides a fair interpretation, a fair image of the world out there. Data is there to do the heavy lifting on reporting. The real reporting always happens on the ground. Thank you very much. I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Sotiris. And I want to make reference to the point you made about Dept, the god of some wisdom in Greece. In my place, where I come from, in Yoruba land, we also have something similar to AI. I don't know how many people are Yoruba here and who have heard of something called Sigidi. Sigidi. Sigidi is like Yoruba AI. You send Sigidi to go and carry out an instruction, and it will do it to perfection. So if you wake up in the morning and somebody offends you, and you don't want to punish the person by yourself, you can instruct Sigidi to go and give that person 10 lashes of cane on your behalf, and it will do just that. That is our AI. But, there are so many things, so many knowledge, so many wisdom indigenous to Africa that we are here to develop. But we're going to return to that later. The point again that Sotiris was making about some of the AI tools, we're going to be talking about them in our workshop session. We're going to show students especially, and of course the interested scholars, how to use some of these tools for research and for journalism practice. The ChatGPT, how does it work? The Google, what's the name of that? Pinpoint, the Google Pinpoint. How can you use Google Pinpoint to look at several documents when you are doing research? And several other tools like otter.io, which actually serves like a stenographer. You can have your meeting and you activate your Otter, and it will translate everything that you are saying into text. So you don't need to write anything as a secretary. So there are many tools that scholars, researchers, students can use to actually make their work very easier. So we're going to be talking to some of this issue. Show you how to use some of these tools during our workshop in the next few hours. Let me turn to you, Prof. You are a professor of media ethics, and you have been researching on media issues, media law, media ethics, not only in Nigeria, but in the West. You've taught in Canada, in the US, and now in Nigeria. Tell us about your thought about these developments around AI in the space of journalism.
Well, let me thank the organizers of this conference, also the co-participants panel, as well as presenters earlier on, especially Jeff, and also just make the point that in my discussion moving forward, I'm going to avoid any jargons around technology itself, because I think that really belongs in the domain of computer science scholars, and which also brings me to my number one highlight, if you will, of Jeff's presentation today, and that is the issue of education and the collaboration that needs to take place between communication scholars and computer science scholars. An example of that, of course, from his own paper presentation is the Media Lab initiative at Northwestern University. And in that initiative, of course, what we saw is bringing together both communication scholars and, if you will, computer science scholars to co-create, if you will, AI applications that would be beneficial to both. That would also balance the scale in terms of what AI provides for your benefit as journalists, but also keeping in mind that unless you have that collaboration between computer science scholars and communication scholars speaking the same language on the same page. Computer science scholars who are only interested in AI applications are going to create a wonderful AI technology, but it does not come with the ethics that will regulate it. It's not self-regulating. And that also speaks to the nature of how you practice your craft as journalists. First of all, the training that has to take place from the get-go at the universities, because we're talking about universities, right? And the collaboration between journalists and those who create the technology, in this case, AI. So when you have the right kind of training, then it sets you on the right path to understanding that the human touch that is needed in terms of how you use the technology is pretty much taken care of in that sense. And then, of course, when you have a collaboration between scholars who do the technology and those who use it, then the framework for how ethics takes care of the kinds of concerns that I think Jeff in his paper kind of raised, one of which is misinformation. We have seen in the case of the United States, in a variety of presidential elections, and in fact, other types of elections, the primaries, as well as the real election that usually would take place, the use of AI in terms of sending out messages that are deliberately meant to misinform. Hillary Clinton, of course, was a major victim of that. And if you go back and do some sort of media content analysis of how that election was influenced between Donald Trump and, if you will, Hillary Clinton, there was a lot of use of robocalls, right? And a lot of misinformation that was put out there deliberately to tarnish her image as a candidate. And when Jeff was talking about how AI could be used to undermine democracy, that is what that means. That means that if we misuse AI in terms of our ability to take advantage of what it does, whether it is AI generated, the first example was, I think, the learning, what was that? The deep learning, right? And then, of course, generative AI. All of these different types of AIs can be used in terms of what we call media abuse, especially in terms of making sure that you don't really look at the ethics behind it. And if you are working as a journalist, your training in media ethics should inform your understanding of how you can apply oversight, because that's one of the areas where we have major concerns. If you use AI technology willy-nilly, the idea is that you don't understand the larger implications of what could happen in terms of misinformation, in terms of lack of editorial oversight, in terms of what we call editorial biases, the lack of human touch in that. So the idea is that looking at AI in itself, without also looking at the responsibilities that come for the practice of journalism, is a major disservice to the practice of journalism. Now, my take on that is that, yes, of course, we live in the age of what we call technological determinism. AI is the best example of that. We cannot run away from it. But at the same time, we also have to strike a balance. And that balance cannot be done by the machine itself. We, as reporters, we as media organizations, must take control of that. And that begins by coming up with clear policies that regulate the use of AI. So, for example, I can imagine a situation where someone sits at his home as a journalist, he or she has a deadline, and then it simply does not allow him to be able to submit his assignment, right, on time. You and I spoke about this. And he can simply feed the machine, in this case AI, right, and tell the machine to give him a story with all of the quotes, the paraphrase and all of that, and then he sends it off to his editor. Two things are happening morally. Two things that are wrong morally. One, there's need for self-regulation. Given the nature of conventional journalism, you should not engage in fabrication, right, of a story. So before you even get to the idea of what happens at the organizational level, the journalist has an obligation to self-regulate. That's what we call media ethics, right? But beyond that, you also need the editorial oversight. When that story goes out, and if you don't have a human oversight on that, i.e. the editorial gatekeeping that needs to take place, guess what? It's going to go out with all of the credibility issues, because when audience are reading a story from, let's say, WikkiTimes, the idea is that they believe in the paper and they believe in whoever has written because of the byline, right? But if it turns out that that story was totally fabricated based on AI-generated news story, that definitely is going to affect the credibility of the journalist himself. And if it is discovered eventually by the audience, it does also affect the credibility of the newspaper. So the self-regulation that takes place at the micro level is one that cannot be underrated, right? The second thing is that media organizations have an obligation to impose that human oversight, right, based on the editorial check on what is IA-generated information. So that is something that has to be made very clear. Now, beyond that, I do believe that in African context, one of the major challenges is the idea that we do not create these AI-generated technologies. We are always playing catch up, meaning that we wait for charity, right? We are always waiting for handouts, okay? An example of that is, look at this conference. I don't mean to say anything negative, but look at the funding, right? Where did that funding come from? It's not coming from Nigeria. The Nigerian government doesn't really, I don't want to say this, but it doesn't give a shit about whether or not, forgive my French, okay, sorry about that. Sorry about that, right? But the point I'm making is that this conference would not have been possible without the funders that had made it possible. And these funders are not Nigerian, right? They're not necessarily African. That's not a problem. But the problem with AI-generated journalism practice based on technologies that do not have the African situation at heart is that it's totally going to be an extension of the Eurocentric values that we see in journalism. And when you think about values, they are not universal. There are no universal values when it comes to what they believe and what we believe. The issues that Jeff highlighted usually is about democracy, right? How AI will undermine democracy, probably in the West. But I don't think that is the most important value that we really care about in Africa. We care about democracy too, but there are a lot more issues that we care about that could undermine our coexistence as a pluralistic society, especially in Nigeria. An example of that is that we're talking about conflict. Conflict in a country where there's already enough going on in terms of distrust, right? And the media has been a big part of that in terms of perpetuating sectionalism, right? Ethnicity, religious, polarizations, and all of that. Imagine a situation where you adopt AI technology and you have bad intentions, right? And the whole idea is you're going to roll it out to create conflict through journalism, right? That is a big issue. And if the technology is not designed to help you do that, right, you're just going to be, once again, a bystander. So what I'm promoting here is that let's be more proactive. And that proactivity is going to come when we have full confidence in our ability to be equal partners in how AI technology becomes part and parcel of our DNA as Africans. Without that, once again, we're going to remain just the way we have always been, beggars. I know this is controversial, but I like to put it out there. And I've lived in the West for a very long time, right? And ironically, Jeff lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I used to live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is like next door neighbor. So I've been to Grand Rapids so many times. What is my point in this? The point is, in order for us to be on the top of it, right, both in terms of regulation, because we don't have that yet, right? We don't have any regulation for AI yet as a national policy. And then the ethics, of course, like I said, is internally imposed. But that cannot be possible without a collaboration between media scholars, right, and computer scholars all across the board, and also tech companies that are indigenous. Don't rely on Google and Amazon to protect our interest in Africa, be it economic, political, and social, but largely journalism, right? Because that's what we are talking about. So I'm going to leave it there. I know I've raised a lot of controversial issues, but that's the whole idea. And I'm willing to take on any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Mohammed, Hamisu, Sani. Prof and I were going to be presenting a paper this afternoon on the AI ethics in African newsrooms. And I invite you to be part of that conversation we are going to be having. By the way, self-disclosure is my professor, is my supervisor on PhD program at the Baze University. So when you see him talking about some of this issue, I share some of his views. Anyway, let me turn to you. Haruna, do you want to?
Yes, Ajibola, thank you. Quickly, I wanted to quickly interject on a few things Prof has mentioned, which is a wider conversation taking place among journalists and the academic community in Nigeria. The concern about, the ethical use of these applications and all of that. And which is very germane, the concern is valid, is germane. For example, people complaining about students using ChatGPT to plagiarize, to generate assignments and all of that, which is very true. And the same thing in the journalism space. Journalists using ChatGPT to generate articles. But I tell people, hold on a little bit. People have been lying before these AI tools. Students have been plagiarizing before these AI tools. It's just a natural human tendency to lie, to deceive. These AI tools are here. They are not going to go away. It boils down to the fundamental thing, which is that how do we engage them ethically, morally? For instance, if you want to check somebody's generated content on ChatGPT, there is another AI tool that can help you do that. Yeah. ChatGPT 0, for example, GPT0.me is going to help you detect ChatGPT generated text. So my argument is simple. We have to adopt this AI. We have to engage them because they are going to help us do a whole lot of things. I mean, we've listened to the lamentations yesterday, the complaint about episodic reporting, about lack of nuances, lack of context and perspectives. I say we can use AI to bring all of these things and then educate and inform our people in a very positive way. So rather than amplifying conversations about or perhaps exacerbating the phobia about this AI and all of the negativities, the perceived negativities, we should channel our energy into looking at the drivable advantages of these AI tools and how we can maximally use them to benefit our people. Even in the academic community, for example, 1 second, Ajibola. you have a lecturer assessing, say, 300 students. That's a lot of work. And I want to believe you wouldn't devote your time to give these people the best because the number is huge. Sadly, that is our reality in Nigeria. The question now is, how are you going to use AI to assess them efficiently? There are applications that will allow you to make that happen. At WikkiTimes, we are going to be doing a lot of trainings, hopefully in the next few months. And our hope is that we'll bring newsrooms and the academic community in appreciating and understanding these AI tools and how to deploy them positively. So that is my take on this. Sorry, Prof, for the interjection.
But I appreciate your response in the sense that I think the idea is to strike a balance. I was not looking at necessarily all of the positives because I think that point has already been made. But I'm just saying that part of our obligation as scholars is to point out that it's a double-edged sword, right? In as much as it has a lot of benefits, but we also have to be careful and cautious about taking care of the larger implications. And we are only looking at the tip of the iceberg in that, right? So just moving forward on this, our paper is going to be looking at what the literature suggests on both sides, and then I think we'll have a much more robust conversation when that happens.
Thank you very much, Professor Hamisu and Haruna Mohammed. I mean, let me just say quickly to you, when you were talking about the ChatGPT and the ChatGPT-0, the one that will detect whether you have used ChatGPT to do your work, there's another tool called originality.ai. That one, again, can actually help you to cover your track. If you have used ChatGPT, then you can also take the work to originality.ai, and it will make sure that it erases all the digital patterns that will show. But that's another conversation. That's another conversation, and we are going to get into the middle of that conversation in the afternoon. Let me return. No, I'll need to return to Ibilolia at this moment because you guys at Dataphyte, you have been using AI tools to do data-driven investigations, insightful stories. And I would like to know, especially your Nubia project, can you speak to that? How do you use that to assist your journalists and your newsroom?
Okay, so we've had, before I go into that, we've had a lot of talks around the pros and the cons of AI, but I just want to put these in the minds of everybody. There is something, there's a context called responsible use of AI. When we as educators want to talk about AI, we don't just tell you, hey, go use AI, it's very cool, right? And I like the fact that Ajibola had to talk about originality.ai. You're even really going so far. People could put prompts on ChatGPT in a way that when this text comes out, it's personalized, right? And then they take it from there to Grammarly and then say, paraphrase this for me. And that's the end. And that's the end, right? So when they are done with that, they move it again to another AI tool to check for plagiarism. And then once you see 1% plagiarism, they push it out. They are done. I'm sorry, I heard the whole it don't stop, right? But that's just how far we've gone in ensuring that we know where everyone comes from. This AI is not from us. So for you to be able to beat the system in a legal way, in a positive way, you need to know the bads or the disadvantages of it. So that's on that. So now back to the question about our Nubia project. Mr. Jeff talked about machine learning and generative AI, right, as a type of artificial intelligence. So now the Nubia project was done based on an intersection of both of them, right? So we used something called, I don't know if you've heard about open access data or open source data from Daily Times, the World Bank, CBN data, obviously, because when you're training a model, machine learning is used to train models, right, to think like humans. So You use secondary data to train, and then use primary data to test. So what I mean is, we get this open access data, train our model, then get primary data that we collected to test how efficient this model is. So there's a lot of codes and all of that. So the good thing is, I heard Sotiris saying, journalists, you put the codes and now it's a lot of stress to put the codes, start learning codes and the rest. So the Nubia project is taking the stress away from you, right? As a journalist, you get your data, your primary data, you upload it to Nubia, you put in your prompts, right? Based on the story you want to tell. I wish I could do a demonstration of the Nubia, right? You put your prompts based on the story you want to tell, and it creates your content for you. Now, this takes us to what Prof said, that you need to review it. Of course, it is a machine. It cannot be 100% accurate. Even humans are flawed, right? I could learn something today and try to reproduce it tomorrow. I can't say 100%. If you ask me, no matter how we think we have computer memories, if you ask me everything that was said yesterday, if I do 80%, it's a pass mark, right? Because there are a lot of information as humans we gather as we are walking. So when you get your content from this Nubia tool, you have to review it. Of course, put it in a way that it is newsworthy. It does not pass misinformation. It does not cause challenges for anyone who reads it. So the Nubia project, simply, all I'm saying is it works on machine learning, generative AI, helps a journalist to cut down on the time it takes for him to produce his stories. So just imagine in a week, you are supposed to give your editor 5 different stories. I mean, when we were coming today, I heard Mr. Ajibola, someone saying, oh, you have to create a story today, right? And submit it today. And I told my friend there that this guy, the person that is going to do this is going to see Shege, right? In that word, Shege today. Because he has to stay through the program, get everything we're saying here, and go back while you and I will be sleeping to create that story. So just imagine he has all his data, he uploads it on Nubia, it creates his story. All he has to do is to review, put in all the nuances that he has to do. So that's how Nubia AI has been helping. And I mean, good enough, we've had a lot of people use it. We've had a lot of newsrooms use our AI project.
Thank you very much, Ibilolia. Very brilliant. Thank you. Do someone to clap for him? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I am going to go back to Sotiris now. Sotiris, I mean, you are a data scientist, and we're told that data is a fuel for AI. I mean, from the conversation that we've been having now, it means that data is very, very important. And the quality of data that AI is filled with will determine the kind of output that AI is going to produce. And at the moment, CCIJ is working on a very important Nigerian election. We will not discuss the detail because it's still a sensitive story. But I just want to tell you how we're using data to prevent certain unpleasant circumstances that happen during the election. We can assure you that in the next election, it's going to be different. It's going to be more sane. And we're going to use technology to make sure that the outcome of the election is more clean than what we had in 2023. And we're going to use AI to do that. We are on that project at the moment, and you will see. But, Sotiris, can you tell us more? How do you use data to train AI to get good outputs? The kind of thing that you are doing at CCIJ, but without talking about the details.
Sure, thanks. I will be very fast and very quick. I want to echo to what actually Ibilolia was saying, that we need to review everything. So this is more or less what we are doing at CCIJ and the AI systems that we are using, because the perfect data set does not exist. There are so many flaws and so many holes in any data set that we have been working on, or personally I have been working on, that I will never be 100% certain that the data is perfect. This will never happen. So what we do is that, first of all, we collect the data. This data can be anything, really. It can be text, it can be video, it can be audio, it can be pictures, anything. It can be structured data in terms of, a very clean Excel spreadsheet. Then what we do in order to maximize the quality of data is that we clean the data and that we prepare it, which means that we remove duplicates, we are handling missing values, we normalize the data in general. For text, this data can be, removing some stop words or stemming. For images, it can be resizing and normalizing the pixel values. I'm talking very briefly about that because I don't want to get into, technical details. Then what we do is that we label the data, we categorize the data, we provide some kind of understanding, human understanding to the data. So if an image shows cats, we will say that this is an image of cats. If the sentiment of an image is positive, we're gonna label it as positive. So that's how we start training our model and using the data that we can handle as humans. Then we select which data we want to use in this training, and we move on to the training of the model in order then to feed it with more untrained data in order to predict the outcome of this analysis. Of course, then is the evaluation process and the tuning of the data. We validate the outcome and whether this is successful or not, or how much successful it is. And then we deploy this data in this model and to perform the task we train the data before. What is very important here, and this is my first and last actually key takeaway of my input as well as of the whole panel, is the continuous monitoring and updating of any process in this kind of algorithm making or AI software development. Human monitoring, interaction, and intervention will always be there, and it must be there, either to review the outcome or to train the data. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sotiris. As we're coming to the audience now, because we're going to be passing the microphone to you guys, but before you do that, quickly, Prof, what are the ethical considerations that newsroom, journalists, students, scholars, what should they be paying attention to before or why they are using AI?
I think the number one thing, of course, at least in the newsrooms, is accountability, right? That one of the major expectations in terms of media ethics is accountability. So when you are using AI-generated news, right? So it's because the whole idea is distribution, generation of information or news gathering, and also audience analysis. In terms of accountability, the monitoring that takes place on the human angle is terribly critical, because if all you have is to rely on AI-generated stories that don't have empathy, right? Don't have any moral guidance in terms of what is put out there. I know there are checks and balances inbuilt, at least in some AI-generated technologies. But I think as we move forward, there's going to be greater challenges in terms of how we hold media organizations, journalists, considering or basing their own stories solely on AI-generated stories. So accountability is one, transparency is one, or is another, right? So in other words, we know that in journalism, attribution matters, right? And if you're going to be writing a story, you have your byline, we can hold you accountable. and also the media organization can be liable in that sense. So let's make sure that when you are putting out some stories that are generated by AI, there is some sense of transparency for the audience, i.e., we are actually getting information or stories that are AI generated. Now, you also have to make sure that there are no editorial biases that can be overlooked as a consequence of stories that are put out there by AI. Now, generally speaking, when you look at the role of journalists in this case, they are not just only playing the watchdog role in terms of accountability and holding people in government accountable, right? Which in some cases AI cannot be able to do by itself, but they also have to be a watchdog over the AI technology itself, right? Over the AI technology itself, because once again, it can run wild. If it is left by itself, you feed it, because if you look at the first technology that he talked about, right, AI technology, all you have to do is to feed it with the information. Then it can regenerate it on itself. So if there are biases that are embedded in the information that you put out there, every time you roll it out, it's going to also reinforce those biases against minorities, at least in the US, minorities, women, and so on and so forth, right? There are even cases where they feed the data on resumes that were submitted 10 years back, right? And those resumes that were analyzed to feed the machine were largely submitted by men, right? And when they kind of wanted to test it, the biases showed against women. In other words, any resume that had male, female, woman would be teased out automatically by the IA-generated data mining machine that was rolled out. So imagine if, for example, after those biases were being reinforced, there was no human oversight to go back and look at those resumes to say, okay, we can't have all male applying for the same job, right? We need diversity, we need inclusion. Okay, so these are some of the areas that are called uncharted territories that we have not looked at yet.
I need to stop you here because our time, and we need to get feedback from the audience. So I see one hand up, Busolai. Okay, you. I need to take two here. So let me, 1, 2. Let me take someone at the back. The lady there, 3. So first person, we'll deal with this line first, and then we'll come to the other line. Let's do it that way, organized. The lady at the back. Okay, yeah.
Thank you for a very brilliant conversation, panelists. And I'm glad that Prof ended on the note on gender bias. And that's where I want to come in. So most of the data that is being fed to large language models are overwhelmingly masculine. I mean, the data we have in the world today, gives more visibility, portrays the world in a more masculine way. And so one of the most prominent challenges that we've had to deal with in the media narrative is on the representation of women and other vulnerable groups. So my question to Haruna and to you, Ibilolia, who are both at the helm of integrating AI into storytelling, is that how are we going to deal with the challenge of gender bias in news reports, in storytelling, heavily relying on AI-generated context? That's number one. Then the second question will go to Prof in the area of overbearing ethical implications of AI. I know right now we're talking about the implications of ethical implications of AI, when journalists use it. But can we also talk about that overbroad implication on the economy of the newsroom itself? So we are using, Nubia, for example, is using content from Daily Trust, from all over news platform, to feed data. Same with ChatGPT. Same with Bing and all of that. And we know that newsrooms are struggling with economic sustainability. Now that search generative engines, ChatGPT and all of those, reduce the visibility of the newsroom, reduce referral traffics, can we talk about how is an ethical problem around intellectual property and plagiarism, and how that really, really poses a very huge threat on the economy and visibility of the media? Thank you.
Okay, so you're going to note your question because we need to be fast about this. Just note your question. You're going to respond to. So let me get all the questions from here. So, Doc. Can someone pass the microphone to Doc, please?
Thank you very much for this wonderful debate we are getting from you. However, I have some concerns regarding some of the issues that have been raised. Number one is that I have been using this AI. As you said, when you were talking about the benefits of this AI, you were saying that researchers can benefit a lot from it because you can give a query to chat box and it will give you some of the things that you need. But the issue, the concern here is that sometimes the AI will tell you that some of the references that they are giving you or they are fictitious. So try and verify or try and get your own information that are reliable. So in that, I have this concern that, does that mean, because if AI can give you a list of references, and it is telling you that those references are fictitious, and you can find out from the content that the in-text citations are there, does that mean those content in the inside work are something to rely on? Okay, that's number one.
Is that a question for me or for the panelist?
Yeah, you mentioned it when you were talking about the benefits.
All right.
And another one is the issue of that Yoruba AI that you mentioned.
Shigidi.
Yeah. So I don't know. Is that has to do with technology? Because when you're talking about AI, then technology must come in. So I want to get maybe your response on that. And for the prof, when you were talking about the national policy on this AI, I always have this doubt that don't we have media law and ethics on ground? Why must we wait for any national policy to guide journalists in their own work? Because whichever content you are going to generate from AI, you have the responsibility to go through it so that you filter out those information that could not be made public.
Okay, Doc, we have
so
to stop.
If that is the case,
we have to stop you here now.
Then
you alone, you have 3 questions, which is fine. So let's take someone else on this line, then we'll come to this line. So the man at the back, and you are going to be the last man on the man with Dr. Okole Shetima's cap.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Mohammed Hassan, a PhD political science student. My concern is no one will argue with the advantages that I came with. But the issue is when you come to academia, no one will also argue that this is weakening scholarship. Yes. So my question is that how can we manage this kind of scenario in which the IA is weakening the academia or the scholarship, which is the backbone of scholarship or is backbone of any academic institutions?
Thank you very much. Prof, you will take that question because it's an academic question. Now let me move to this side. Or should we do with this row first? Okay, so let's, you are going to have 1 minute each to speak to the question. Haruna, you go first.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Busola. So to your question, I met one AFP journalist in South Africa and Sweden, Garance Bonk, who is coordinating journalists at the AFP to investigate this AI. She said something to me that was very, very instructive, which was that we have to investigate these AI tools. Prof mentioned a moment ago about racial discrimination and all of that, and to your point about training the AI with mostly masculine data, which is very, very discriminatory. So my answer to that is very simple. And I made this argument earlier, that we have to understand these tools, we have to engage these tools. When we understand and engage them, we can be able to identify these discriminatory issues that everyone is talking about and be able to address it. These tools are not developed by journalists. They are mostly developed by technologists who don't care about journalism, about the core of journalism, right? But these tools are affecting us. They are affecting our people in very many ways. So how do we actually hold those guys responsible, accountable, if we do not engage and understand these tools? So my answer to you is that let us continue to engage and understand this. And that is why this conference is important. It's housing journalists, the academia, and other important stakeholders. So should we begin to provoke conversations, for example, that will be asking these deeper questions and begin to figure out how to address them? I think fundamentally we should, rather than, for instance, consistently lamenting about these issues. We are not going to solve them if the conversation is always about lamentation and all of that. Let us understand them. Let us engage the academia, journalists, every other important stakeholders, and begin to appreciate first what these AI tools can be can be used for positive things, and then also pay attention to the negativities, to all the concerns people are talking about, and also begin to figure out how to address that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Haruna, Ibilolia.
All right, just to build up on what he said, I just want to open up your mind to know that a tool like ChatGPT, created by OpenAI, was not made for journalists or the healthcare industry or anybody. It is not professional specific, or profession specific rather. Now, you need to also know that they gathered a lot of data from everywhere to be able to, okay, just imagine you want to find out an information on the banking sector and you put it on ChatGPT and it tells you, I don't have information on the banking sector. The finance guys will be like, why do I then need ChatGPT, right? But now, this is why Dataphyte is trying to mediate this to create an artificial intelligence tool for the journalists, by the journalists, and with the kind of data that the journalists gather and report on. It's also it also interests you to note that we actually did the measure the relationship between the technologists, the computer scientists, the AI guys, right? Or we call them the machine learning engineers, and journalists. So that's why we trained and tested with primary data. So if we want to go by the limitations of ChatGPT, I always say there is a call for every profession. Imagine the military having an AI tool for themselves that is trained based on the kind of data the military generates. That is what Nubia is doing for journalists. So we cannot particularly hold ChatGPT responsible for saying, why are you showing us only masculine data? OpenAI will tell you we are not gender biased. But if you gather, because of how large data is, the volume of data, by the time you rationalize it, you realize that there's more information coming from the masculine side of things than the female side of things. So that's why you can't really hold them responsible for anything. So if Nigeria is moving forward in terms of technological advancement and adoption of AI, we can own and leverage it and beat our chest to say Nigeria created a tool for journalists that can be used anywhere in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bidola. A round of applause. Thank you. Prof.
So there were 3 questions. I think I remember 2, so I'm going to have to repeat.
That's fine.
The first one is, do we need a national policy on AI? One thing that I've just read this morning, I don't know if it is fake news or true story, because it's hard to distinguish which is which these days, is that they're going to merge NBC and NCC. That's excellent news, because all of a sudden now they're going to be forced to collaborate more in coming up with regulatory aspects of the intersection between communication, right, at least the broadcast side, and telecommunication. So a lot of the technology, of course, that has to do with the concerns around AI, I presume, will also be part of the policy framework around what happens, at least in broadcast media. I'm not too sure about how they are going to regulate social media, because that one is the animal that is very difficult to regulate, right? But at least that conversation between and among different sectors of communication, right, in the society, at the national level, I think is going to take place. And they're going to have to handle that situation. So my view is that we're not going to be able to use the same regulations for defamation, for example, right? Libel, for instance, and slander when you are dealing with AI, right? If there is no byline, there's not even an organization behind the story. Somebody is just putting it out there, right? And they kind of just hide behind AI generated. How are you going to hold somebody accountable in that, right? And that is why, in fact, we are seeing similar challenges with social media in terms of regulation. So the more AI you have, and the more people are not giving you attributions and their sources for what they are putting out there, the more difficult for you to hold them accountable. So that is an open-ended question, if you will. In that, you cannot be using the same regulatory policies around communication when you are dealing with AI, right? You have to think proactively and creatively. So that has to be well thought out by the government. Now, on the issue of, I think I'm going to the second question. I don't know if I have answered your question about that, right? So, but on the second question about how do you deal with the issues around people losing their jobs, right? When you are relying more and more on AI-generated tasks in the newsroom. That has been a major concern. It's not necessarily an ethical question, but it's an economic one, right? But the other related question, which is also ethical, is the question of how do you get hold of your copyrights, right? And whatever content you are putting out there. What I have read so far is that there are some news organizations that are putting out strict guidelines in terms of how AI-generated content gets out there. They make sure that there is the human oversight, right? And they also make sure that they fact check on that, and they make sure that when it is out there, and the organizations are BBC and Associated Press, they are gung-ho about using AI-generated content, but they are also very strict about controlling the information that gets out there in their name. So what I'm suggesting here is that every news organization has to also take responsibility for making sure that whatever is put out there in the name of AI-generated content is something that they can also defend. And they make sure that if there are legal issues around that, they can be able to take care of it. The good thing about ethics is that if you apply ethics correctly, you don't have to worry about the legal framework. That is why it is self-regulating for both media organizations. And if you look at the codes of ethics, for most organizations, they are self-regulating. So the same thing has to also apply for AI-generated content. Use ethics internally and also preempt any legal challenges that could crop up down the road. That's the way I see it with that. The final question, the third one, I am not sure. I can remember it. Which was the third question for me?
Final question is
it's
on destructions of scholarship by AI.
It's on education. I like that question because this is the 1-year anniversary of ChatGPT. A little over 1 year, right? Since they roll it out. In many universities, even in the United States, they banned the use of ChatGPT, right? They banned it because they were worried about the watering down of education. You give an assignment, they just do it, right? You can even take minutes, right? Based on that technology. And already, if you have been teaching at my kind of university, I don't want to say it loud, but the kind of students that we teach know the technology more than we do. I can tell you that because they are Gen Z generation. They live on it. But I guess what? They cannot hold information up here. It's very difficult for them to retain information. So you may be talking about something that should have been part of the curriculum. If you did a course at the 300 level, I'm teaching a course at 400 level, I'm assuming that it's going to be building on that, right? So I'm asking a question about something that we talked about in your previous class at the 300 level, and they are Googling. They are just Googling, right? What does that tell you? It tells you that the digital media and the proliferation of information, the saturation of information has made it possible for people not to worry about retention. And they are not worried about originality. And it makes you wonder, why did I spend, well, I don't want to say that, but you spend a lot of time in school doing all the right things, right? And then you come back home, you're teaching kids who don't want to retain anything. They just want to Google it. And especially there's no sense of history, right? So and I think Prof was alluding to that yesterday. No history. Talk about Second Republic. I talk about Second Republic when I'm teaching my classes, political, whatever, and they don't know these guys, right? Even the first Prime Minister of Nigeria, somebody couldn't remember, Tafawa Balewa, all these guys. But they will Google because the information is readily available. What is my point? My point is that the watering down of education is already happening without AI. And we have not counted that yet. Now, you are adding on another uncontrollable animal out there with these technologies that are based on profit making. They are largely commercial. These tech companies are not interested in ethics. I'm telling you, they are simply trying to roll it out and make it more efficient for you. But what happens down the road in terms of implications, again, they are totally nonchalant about that. So, again, we are all in it together.
Okay, I'm coming to this side now. But quick, my own question. So yeah, the question that was asked was using ChatGPT to generate, an academic work and the references and all that. So no, he has two questions, so I'm addressing the first question. So the first question is that, you see, I also mentioned verification, that you use ChatGPT to generate ideas for your research does not mean that you should rely solely on what ChatGPT produces. You need to also do your verifications. I've had that experience before myself when I query ChatGPT that give me some literatures on disinformation studies. And it gave me a list. So what I did, then I went to Google Scholar to start checking whether those literature actually exist and whether they discuss that subject. So you need to have your own checking system. And that is very important as a serious academic. So that's a point I was making the other time. So I'm not saying that you use it uncritically. Then, to the second question of Shigidi. For those ones who come from my part of the world, it's an indigenous science in a way, which you could, and it's because we don't interrogate our knowledge. Because if we do interrogate our knowledge, how does it happen that you ask something to do something, and that thing goes away and do that. And people have the testimony of that. There is another one called Oshoyin. They will, and these are indigenous knowledge. But because you don't question how they work, and that is why we just dismiss them as voodooism. And again, that's the language of the Western scholars. Because anything that produces scientific knowledge in Africa is voodoo. But if it's come from the West, it is something, it is science. So, and because scholars are not also asking questions, some of these things, how do they work? What are the rationale behind their working? I think it's a challenge for people in the academia to also look back and see whether we can benefit from the knowledge of those ones who have been using some of these technology in quotes. That's going to be my response to that. Prof, the people here complain that we have not, so I don't want to be biased, so I want to move to this side of the aisle. Prof, can you please?
I'm sorry. I'm coming from a different angle. All the questions, the answers are what I term moral panic. When books came, the clergy claimed religion would be destroyed. So they were destroying books. If you are not of royal blood, you are caught reading any book, you will be hanged. Until Gutenberg came and created the movable prototype, and here we are today. When radio came, we were afraid the world has come to an end. When television came, it was the same thing. When handset came, preachers were everywhere. If you see your child with a handset, she is wayward. But we are here today. The first question I should ask, why should somebody be using ChatGPT 3.5? You want a wolf and you want the best. It's not done that way. Why should you use 3.5, the free version, and you want it to give you the correcting? It's not done that way. I am for AI in education. Because why? Why am I for AI in education? AI is not to substitute our brains. The simple definition of a computer is that it is a machine that makes your work easier. And for AI, the journalist complaining, there is black box, there is toolbox.ai. You go and without computer knowledge, you create an AI tool that will help you in verifying your claims, in making your news pieces better, contextualizing them. But we see it, we hear about AI, we don't know it, we start condemning it into moral panicking. And by the time we will be catching up, the world will be ahead of us as we are now. My prof, Maazu, is here. AI is even being outpaced. We have IOE, Internet of Everything. We have Web 4.0, fusion of man and machine. And we are still challenging AI. The road we will miss the road on the way. My students, I'm telling you, don't rely on the AI. Let it make your studies easier, make your retention faster. So I'm fully for AI and education. Thank you.
All right, the conversation is getting more interesting. And that is a true test of a scholarly environment like this. I mean, I agree with you, Prof, to some extent, because the debate around the subject is that there are some universities in the West as well, Prof, that do not totally banish the use of AI. In fact, the argument has been that if you must use AI, just disclose that certain percentage of my work was enabled by AI. As much as you disclose that, that is fine. But that's a conversation that we can continue to have after this meeting. Let me come back to this side. No, this side has not spoken at all. Hello. So, because I was not seeing anyone hands. Okay, Prof, I'll come back to you. let him. I'll come back to you, sir. Let him take his turn.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And apologies, I don't know how the discussion started and how far it has gone, but from what the part I heard and from what Dr. Hashim just said, I just want to start on a premise. And I said this in Morocco in November. I said this in Abuja.
Can you introduce yourself, sir?
I'm Mohammed Bashir Muazu from Department of Computer Engineering, Ahmadu Universities.
Oh, now we have a computer man in the room.
Yes. No, I think that's enough. Maybe
full disclosure.
No, when I finish, I'll do the full disclosure. So I think the basis upon which I want to just briefly interject is to say we've gotten to a point that in using technology, we have to let our students learn how to learn using technology. Any other thing, we're just going about this whole thing in a very wrong way. This is what I said in Morocco. This is what I said in Abuja in November and December, respectively. So, and I had a lot of the part I had about what AI, the challenges, the fears, and just like Dr. Hashim said, I think it's important that we try to look at this from a different perspective. Maybe I'm looking at it from the perspective, but just to create maybe that necessary platform for whatever else I'm going to say. You know, he talked about the GPT 3.5 model, upon which the conventional ChatGPT that we're all used to is based upon. And to me, like you said, if we're making, most of these things I've had alluded to are things that you find in ChatGPT 3.5 above. When it comes to ChatGPT 4, based on GPT-4 model, then it's a different story. But then we can't go on in this direction when we're gradually, when this technology is moving away from this mundane perspective that we have about it. In November, ChatGPT 4 came in June, maybe April, June, around that period. By November, they launched GPT-4 Turbo, which now comprises the GPT, the normal GPT, the TTS, text-to-speech, and then DAL-E, which enables us to create images, sometimes real images. So I think the issue, especially from the journalist or some other perspective, not from the engineering perspective, is we should be concerned about how this evolution of technology introduces or brings up the issues of deepfakes. Those are the things which, let's not forget, let's not say our students shouldn't use these technologies, but how do we address these issues of things like deepfakes, you know? But, so those are the things. And now we're even getting to the point of, just a few weeks ago, OpenAI introduced Sora. Sora enables you to use text to generate videos. So I can write a text and it should generate videos. And I know one of my students is saying, and I said, forget about whether it's going to push filmmakers or video makers out of business. Focus more on issues of deepfakes, because we can create some of these things. So our focus should actually be on how do we try to address the issues of the ethical challenges of using these technologies. However, I think just like Prof. alluded to earlier, one of the things that we have, these things are evolving in Nigeria as of today. Apart from the NDPA, the Data Protection Act, we do not have any guideline or framework guiding AI in Nigeria. Talk less of AI in education. But UNESCO has a series of regulations and recommendations on ethical and responsible use of AI. And I think those are the kind of things that we should actually be focusing on in taking this discussion forward. But our appeal, no matter what we're studying, AI has come to stay. We can deceive ourselves. We can go in any path we want to go. But I know there's a study, and I'm sure maybe some of the panelists have come across, and maybe some people interested have come across by Professor, what's her name? We met sometimes. She's from a university in Hong Kong, carried a survey of like 1,000 students in US schools, and a certain about 46% of those students says they even though their schools have or banned the use of, but they use them and they will continue to use them because they know that most of their professors do not know it. Now, that's one aspect of it. Also, we have, like, with the presentation I did in Morocco, for instance, it was on ethical and governance framework for AI in education. And one of the things we do is to try to look around the world. I know in some schools or territories in US, they've banned the use of AI. I know the Russell Group in UK, under which Oxford and Cambridge are part of them, have decided to, just a moment, I'll round up, have also decided to regulate the use of AI. Australia previously had banned the use of AI in schools, but from this 2024, Australia is opening up the use of AI in all schools at every level. In Japan, interestingly, in a lot of universities in Japan, the regulation is not even at university level. The regulation has come down to departmental or lecturer level. What they want is full disclosure. Do you, as a lecturer, want your students to use GPT or generative AI, and to what extent? That should be what you should give that full declaration to students. So gradually, in reality, even these restrictions are gradually phasing out. And because it's a challenge we have to look up to, and I think this is the way we should think about it. Final note, as I started, we have to teach our students to learn how to learn using technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Full disclosure. Full disclosure.
Ajibola,
We won't let you go.
give me a second.
Okay.
1 second.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
let him
Prof. I'll let you do full disclosure. I like that. But I have to make a disclaimer, please. I don't want to walk out of this room given an impression that I am against whatever you are for. I am not. And I set out by saying just that it is here to stay. But we are social scientists, right? Our training is quite different. We come from the normative school of thought. We're looking at ideal situations. They may not be the reality out there, but that's our obligation to say to you that we are not technological determinists. You may be. We believe that technology can drive whatever, but we are also of the view that we have to make sure that we understand the implications. And if you can come up with the technology to also deal with the challenges that come with it, we are all good. I think we're on the same page. And on a final note, that is why I also said that what Jeff was talking about is on point, that this is totally, the discourse by extension is interdisciplinary. You cannot have a conversation on your own as a communication scholar and say, this is where I stand and that is it. No, this is the essence of this conference. The idea is that we have to have a conversation. Students, please learn the technology. As I said, some of my students know more than I do because they live with it, right? They live with it, whether you like it or not. My 4-year-old daughter right now in Canada, she has an iPad. She goes wherever she wants, but we have to regulate because even the advertisements right now with the idea of this whole gender issues, which is fluid right now. If you live in the West, you have to be concerned. If she is watching a program, it may just be entertainment, but then a commercial comes up, and then they are telling her some things that you have no way of knowing what she's been exposed to. That is a concern for me as a parent, and that is technology. You may be out there creating that and saying, let the kids know it. They already know it. But guess what? The moral questions have to also be embedded in that. So you and I, believe me, Prof, we are on the same page, including my friend over here. Let your kids at home, let the students learn the technology, but make sure that you give them the tools to know what is right and what is wrong.
So I've been told, thank you very much for clarification. I've been told.
Thank you. Maybe just it's not a debate.
We will continue the conversations after this one.
Yeah.
Just give a full disclosure because Madam is here and we need to exit.
Yes, but I just need to make a statement or two. I need to do that.
This will not end.
No. We are not dragging this discussion. I completely agree with Prof. I completely agree with him. And so that's why today the major discussion in AI is about responsible and ethical use of AI. Everybody acknowledges the challenges of technology. And so that's why...
Full disclosure.
Yeah, so that's why I said even the presentation I made in Morocco in November was on ethical use of AI and on ethical governance framework. The need to always establish an ethical governance framework. So I completely agree with Prof. I am in full support of his position, but also that we need to also allow us to use this technology, but we must use them responsibly and ethically. I think that's just the bottom line.
Thank you.
So in terms of full disclosure, I don't know what that means, but I'm a professor of computational intelligence, and I'm the director of the International Institute of Online Education, Nigeria National Center. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, folks. I think we need to run. That's why the HOD has given me final instruction that we need to just end this. So I am sorry, Prof. I'm sorry. I wanted to take 2-3 more hands from there, but you can see, Prof. The HOD has given me final word, and that is why I need to say we have to come to the end of this. And I need to thank my panelist, Malam Haruna Mohammed, the publisher of WikkiTimes, who has done very, very well, and who was able to tell us today that we should not run away from AI. We rather should embrace it, especially students who want to be journalists. It's important that you learn how to use some of these technologies to advance the practice of journalism. And of course, Ibilolia, who has also been training on AI, also emphasized on that, and saying that AI is what they've been used to advance their journalism and research, Dataphyte. And there's no way you'll be able to function in an organization like Dataphyte if you don't know how to use artificial intelligence technology. And Sotiris, my colleague at CCIJ, he just pleaded that he needed to go away to another meeting, so he's no longer here with us. But the point he made was also that AI is advancing the work that we are doing at the CCIJ. And like I mentioned to you the other time, you will begin to see some of the impact of the AI in our journalism. I encourage you to join www.ccij.io. That's our website where you can find some of the work that we do at the center. And of course, to my prof, Professor Mohammed Hamisu Sani, who also emphasized on the collaboration between computer scholars and the media scholar, that there is a need for the two disciplines to merge if we really want to take advantage of AI to the maximum. And he also emphasized on self-regulation, that it is not AI for just AI's sake, but we need to also find a way of trying to regulate the use of our AI. These are very brilliant contributions to the discussion around the artificial intelligence, journalism, and media education. Thank you all for being part of this conversation. Thank you.